Oh, you want me to do an intro? Okay.
Yeah, just kind of impromptu, just a quick intro and tell us who you are, and then just a quick intro with me, and we'll get going.
Sure. Well, hi, everybody. My name's Bo. I live in San Diego, and I have been working with Greg for a couple years now, and actually a number of years. What is it like?
5, 6, 5.5.
6?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, 6 years maybe. But anyway, a couple years since Greg kind of exposed some of these ideas to me, and I've just really had a great time and experience kind of learning more. And when Chris Wilson, a good buddy of mine, mentioned the idea of us kind of getting together and doing this thing, I was super pumped, and here we are. So I just love any chance to talk about these things and to remind myself some of these ideas. I'm all for it, because it's just easy to forget some of these basic, really essential ideas.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, Bo. I consider Bo kind of a peer on this journey with me, and we're kind of neck and neck in terms of I might have been a week ahead of him, not much. And so, Bo, if there's anything that I share that doesn't make sense, or if there's something you'd like to add, please feel free. And Chris as well, because I know Chris has been around this as well. Okay. So
yeah, well, let me just one
yeah.
quick thing. Thank you for the peer comment, although I can't say I agree. But just for everybody on the call, I've had the great opportunity to train with a number of people that are considered masters in this space. And I don't know if I've seen anybody better at Greg in doing this, what he's about to talk about, which is the fundamental basics and understanding. And so I think it's just a privilege for everybody to be able to kind of soak some of this in. It is for me.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you so much, Bo. It's funny, this journey of what I'm about to share with you has definitely changed for me. If this was 2.5 or 3 years ago, I would have had a very lively PowerPoint presentation for you. But it's completely changed. And I hope that'll make sense for some of you as we get into this a little bit deeper. But today I kind of come with kind of a clear mind, a clear head, and you could say even stepping into the unknown, not knowing who's going to be on the call, really living in the unknown, and really being able to source something that's beyond my wildest dreams even possible. So there's a certain level of trust, of really learning to trust that there is this intelligence behind the human experience, or behind the scenes, that's available to us, that will come to our rescue in moments like these, when we get in over our head and we really kind of commit. Looks like everybody's drinking wine or beer. I missed that. I missed the memo. I'm seeing everybody kind of, yeah, nice. Well, this is Wino Wednesday, we'll call it. All right. Well, again, welcome everybody to the call. If you just joined in late, welcome. We're just now getting started. So, the theme of this call is clarity. I just kind of made it up, clarity, the key to a kick-ass life. And, I think most people will agree, whatever you're up to in life, the clearer one's head is and the clearer our mind is, it seems to be better in the areas of performance, in the area of meaning, in the area of engagement. There's I don't know if it was the person who just joined, but if you could put your speaker on mute, that'd be great. Hear a little bit of background noise. So anybody, if you just joined in, that'd be great. Thanks. So again, the title that we came up with is Clarity, because I think clarity goes a long way when it comes to performance and quality of life. And, when I think back of my own journey, I've been in the personal development space, professional development space, the kind of spirituality space for going on over 25 years now. I look back, and most of my life, I really experienced more confusion than I did clarity. Like, if I look at my life, I was just really confused. I was confused about what success looked like, and how my definition of success could look so much different than somebody else's. I was just kind of confused about having reached certain milestones and certain goals and accomplishments, and just really being confused by, I thought I'd be happier or feel good, but that just wasn't the case. So I just really struggled with a large part of my life in confusion, if I'm really honest. Like, I was just confused. I couldn't make sense of things. Now, kind of to share a little bit more personally, you could even say, I struggled with depression off and on for many, many years. It's like this roller coaster of life where it seemed like I kind of had life by the balls, or, temporarily. And then, man, I'd take a nosedive, and most of my life was really like that, very much a roller coaster ride. And so you could say I was really confused by that. I was confused by, I couldn't understand why I was having my experience in life. I couldn't understand where my mood swings were coming from. I was just confused by it. So for me, the logic was, well, I just need to change my diet. If I've got these mood swings, or I've got this lack of clarity and confusion, I should probably just change my diet. Or, I'd find out, well, who's the top guru out there right now, and whose teachings can I follow? And maybe that'll help me get out of hot water for these highs and lows. And, and then it's like, well, I need more exercise. I mean, if I was exercising more and getting endorphins going, that would really help me in terms of mental clarity and being able to perform better and have a high quality of life. Gosh. And then I said, well, I know people are talking about mystical experiences and psychedelics. So I'll go try those. I tried everything under the moon, tried it, to see if that would help, and I had some really great experiences, don't get me wrong. And they were really powerful, but it didn't help my mood swings and my life experience. I was more confused than ever in terms of where my moods were coming from and where my experience was coming from. And then it just seemed like a really good idea to get involved in meditation, So, if I could meditate, you hear about meditation and quieting the mind, that just made a lot of sense to me. So I spent a lot of time meditating, a lot of time. In fact, in part of my martial arts training, as an advanced practitioner in my martial arts, we were kind of coerced into Zen training. And so I'd do these long meditation retreats where I'd meditate for 12, 14 hours a day, sitting in a half lotus, and that was good, for about a week or two after the retreat, but I still didn't have any explanation for my moods. I still didn't have any explanation for why my mind's clear in one moment and why it's confused and foggy in the next. So, and it went on and on and on, looking for some sort of explanation for where my experience was coming from and where my moods were coming from and why I was having such a hard time in life, so to speak. And, kind of fast forward through the years, I've been in the coaching industry for a long time. And some of the stuff I was teaching, I was also using on myself, which was coaching skills, and development skills. So, one of the things as coaches back in the old days is we would look at the reason people's minds aren't clear is that they're underdeveloped in life skills. And a big part of that was, one of the life skills was not having appropriate boundaries. So that became something else that I tried. Well, I just need to have more boundaries in my life. And the more boundaries I have, the better quality of life I would have. And then my mind would be clear. And that kind of worked for a little bit too. It seemed like a good idea. So, boundaries and letting people know how they need to be in my space, what they can say or do to not offend me or whatever it is. That seemed like a really good idea. And then, I know why I'm going through all these difficulties. I'm just not clear what my purpose is. So if I just knew what my purpose was, I'd get up out of bed every morning, living my life purpose. That seemed to be the answer. And purpose is really rooted and grounded in knowing what my values are. And so you got to know what your values are. So are you guys getting the message here? Like and I don't know if any of you can relate, but all human beings, best I can tell, are having an experience of life. And what we've discovered and what I've discovered, I didn't know where my experience was coming from. And I had been on this journey for a long time, and I'd kicked all these different bushes, so to speak. And I was both relieved and kind of embarrassed when I stumbled onto this understanding that I'll be sharing with you here, these 3 principles, because it's so simple. It's so simple. I couldn't believe I missed it, like I overlooked it. And so what tonight is really about is sharing that simplicity with you. And I'll say that there's 2 promises in this simplicity and this understanding. One is, wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice to have a single answer for everything you're experiencing in life? Or would you like to stay up all night wondering about the million different things that could be causing your experience in the moment? So, most people, they're looking to explain their experience of life. Some people I know, they won't even get out of bed till they know their horoscope for that day, to explain what they're going to be up against, to explain what the conditions in life are going to be. So wouldn't it be nice if you just knew that there was only one variable to the life experience? And so that's the promise here, is to share with you the one variable that we all have in common as human beings that explains where all human beings' experience come from, not just Greg's experience, not just Bo, not just Chris, not just Hannah, not just Jay, but this is what we all have in common, and it's the single answer to where your feelings come from, where your moods come from, where your experience comes from. Okay? Now, that's clarity from my point of view. That is being really, really clear. And the clearer we are to where our experience comes from, that is extremely helpful to human beings. Because here's what happens. If you know the one thing that's causing your moods and the one thing that's causing your experience, guess what? Your mind isn't searching in these million variables as to what your experience, where your experience is coming from. And as a result, the whole system starts to quiet down because you know it's only one thing. And so the second promise to this is not only knowing the one thing, but which is the clarity of that one thing. But secondly, is that by knowing that alone allows the system to settle. It allows one's mind to clear. It allows one's mind to calm down, because you're not always wondering, I'm not always wondering, why am I feeling this way right now? There's only one answer. There's only one reasoning or one logic behind that. Okay? So that's kind of the idea here tonight, is clarity, the key to a kick-ass life. So there's two points to that. Clarity is that the human experience and where our feelings comes from only happens one way. And I'm now calling that the single paradigm. So it's just one paradigm where our moods and our feelings are coming from all the time, whether we agree with it or not, like it or not, whatever it is. The more we can come back to this understanding of where my moods are coming from, where my feelings are coming from, where my life experience is coming from, the easier life becomes, the clearer I am, the higher quality of life I have, and on and on and on and on and on. Chris, is this making any sense to you?
Yeah, it definitely makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, it's interesting, like having your mind be that quiet, where you kind of understand where things are kind of coming from and being created. I mean, a lot of the stuff that you talked about earlier, I know that my kind of journey has been similar to yours, in that I looked at a lot of bushes. I looked for a lot of places for a lot of answers. So it's nice once you find one, and also kind of very surprising that it's as simple.
Right.
So
great. Thank you, Chris. Just wanted to check in. So a lot of what I share is through metaphors, because it's kind of the easiest way to point to some of this stuff. So if you guys will just bear with me, I'll give you a little bit of, again, it's more of a metaphor to what I would call ease us into this very simple, this very obvious paradigm. But because it's so simple and so obvious, it's easily overlooked or discounted. Okay, and so oops, I'm getting some feedback there. If somebody, can you make sure your mute button is on? That'd be great. So the metaphor I'd like to share with you is that there was a time on the planet here, not long ago, that we lived in a world, and the world really, it occurred to us, and we thought and we believed that the world was flat. Okay, and it wasn't that long ago in history. And the reason I share this with you is that when people live in a paradigm, and they believe, they have thinking and they have believing that that's how things work, or that's how life is, that there are implications to living in a paradigm. Okay, there's implications. And what I mean is that imagine what it was like for people living in a flat world. How would they think? How would they behave? How would they act? Okay. Well, if we look back in history, it kind of shows its face. We know that people were very fearful living in a flat world paradigm. And they were fearful because they actually believed the world was flat. And so if they went too far in any one direction, their fear was that they were going to fall off into this unknown. And it was a time of a lot of superstition. And if you went off the edge and you fell into this unknown, the superstition was this was the abyss. This was some sort of purgatory, or some sort of it's a place that you just didn't want to be, and there was a tremendous amount of fear around what that was like. Now, what also comes with that level of consciousness, or that paradigm, is not only fear, but it keeps people, what we say is that their possibility for life is limited. So their possibility set, or what they deem possible, is limited. And so one of the things that we know during that time is that people who would actually, the fishermen of those times, they fished very close to the land because they didn't want to get too far out, because they were afraid that if they got too far out, they'd fall over into whatever that scary place was. And we also know, because the evidence of that time, there was industries that were built out of those times because of that fear. And one of the industries that was born out of that time was the anchor business. So building anchors was a reaction to the fearful mindset of those people. So the shipping industry, they'd have 4 anchors on the front and 4 anchors on the back and 2 on each side. Well, why did they have so many anchors on the boat? Well, because if they did get too far from shore, and perhaps the fog came in or a storm came in, and they couldn't see, one of the other things they had on the boats is they had these really high crow's nest towers, and the person's job up there was to keep an eye for the edge. That's the edge of the earth. And so if they couldn't see far, they would drop the anchors so that they wouldn't get sucked over the edge. Now, during this time, you have to understand that there were some very educated people that were living. There was artists and scientists and physicians and very, very educated people. But there was a common collective group think, and the common collective group think all agreed that the world was flat. Now, in those times, if you suggested anything other than the world was flat, what do you think they did to you? Okay, well, yeah, not nice. They do this, or they start making a bonfire, and maybe that's where Burning Man actually originated. No, but but they burn people to the stake. You'd be persecuted. It'd be considered heresy. And yet, some people had an insight, perhaps, or had this courageous notion that the world wasn't flat. And I want you to imagine this time where the prevailing thought or consciousness or paradigm is the world is flat, and there's a group of people that decide to test that, and so they get all of their provisions on the boat, and they're destined to set sail. And now just imagine all the flatlanders on the land, and now these people have set sail, and they keep sailing and sailing and sailing, and then they disappear. What do you think the flatlanders thought? They probably celebrated in their righteousness, going, we told you so, until those boats returned. And when they returned, they often came with animals from different countries, spices and silks, and evidence that there's this larger world, the world was round. Now, even when these people came back with evidence, they were still persecuted, and many of them were killed, because it confronted the logic or the paradigm of its time. Okay, so the reason I tell that story is that each one of us, before this understanding, you could say, is living in a flat world. The world is just really flat. Okay, and what happens is that there's a truth out there that is going to that often conflicts with people's current understanding. You say, well, no, that can't be that way, Greg. Are you sure? And yeah, it's that, it's true. It's this way. So what we're pointing to again is understanding and getting clarity around the human experience. We want to understand that. We want to understand, how do human beings experience life? And so, a good maybe point here to make was, what is an experience? Well, right now you're having an experience, whatever it is. You're either enjoying a glass of wine, maybe you're bored right now, maybe you're going, hey, where's this guy going with this? Maybe you're distracted by something going on outside, but each one of you right now is having an experience. And I'm going to suggest that whatever you're experiencing right now is only occurring from this single paradigm that I'm about to share with you. Okay. Now, this is really, really helpful, because if you're having an experience of a bummed out day, and you know that the only reason you're having it is because of this one way, that's really helpful. Okay. But if you don't know where your experience is coming from, what happens is people go on wild goose chases, okay, to figure it out, or they will find some way to medicate or suppress or distract themselves from their experience. So human beings have all these distractions because they just want to feel better. Human beings just want to feel better. But when they can't make sense of where their experience is coming from, they have what I would call habitual or default ways of going about trying to solve that confusion, like myself that I mentioned earlier. Okay. So this new paradigm, or it's not a new paradigm actually, because it's always been around. We're just now waking up to it. So there is no, like, the world was not newly round. It was always round. It was just new to us. All right. So the paradigm is not necessarily new, but it is singular. And so what the paradigm suggests is, or points to, is that whatever you're experiencing in the moment is because of thought. That's it. That we're always thinking or feeling in the moment, period. And what happens is human beings are living in a world of thought, like fish are living in water, and we don't know it, and we don't understand how the system works, so we suffer and we struggle. So that's really it in a nutshell, is that human beings are living in a flat world paradigm, and what comes with that is fear and a limitation to what's possible. Okay? So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And so when we take the lid off of that and we say, no, that's not, the world is not flat, that's not true, it doesn't work that way, it looks flat, I know it looks flat, it even looks flat to me. I was with my friend, he's a pilot, and we were up 35,000 feet flying to Zion Canyon, and shit, man, the world still looks like flat at 35,000 feet. So it really looks that way, but it's not. Now, if you want to argue that the world is flat, well, that's your business. But there's no freedom in there. There's no freedom in the fact of fighting for something that's not true. And there's you end up putting yourself into a limitation. You put yourself in your own cage with your own glass ceiling, living in a flat world paradigm, innocently. It's not like malicious. Nobody's doing this because they're dumb. Nobody's doing this because they're masochists. Nobody's doing this intentionally. What happens is that we just don't know any better. And so all I'm doing is sharing something really, really simple, is waking people up to the fact that there is really only one paradigm that we're in. And the deeper we realize that and see that, what we're left with is clarity, peace of mind, innate well-being, resilience, infinite possibilities, creativity, innovation. I mean, the list is endless. And it's really that simple. Like when people start to see where their experience comes from, and that there's these 3 universal principles that explain every human experience that's possible, that's really helpful to people. It's really helpful. It helps people with psychological problems. It helps people with relationships problems. It helps people who are stuck with their business. It helps people with their own health and well-being. The deeper people realize this, they realize this is fundamental to the human experience. And it's so fundamental, it gives rise to and starts to make sense of life. And for people who have different philosophical backgrounds or spiritual backgrounds, it illuminates those for them in a way that is embodied and grounded and really makes sense to people. Okay? So given the fact that my experience isn't happening to me, it's not because of my diet, it's not because of lack of exercise, because there's people who have shitty diets and are happy. You know, there's people who don't exercise worth a crap, and they're just they're okay with that. All right. There's people who don't have a pot to piss in, and they feel they feel more secure and more happy and sleep better at night than some people who have fortunes and are up all night because they're insecure about if they're going to lose all the stuff they got. So what we're pointing to here is that each one of us experience life based on 3 universal principles. And the 3 universal principles are this. It's really, really simple. But I hope you won't overlook it. So the first principle is this. And I'll even say this, it's more than a principle, it's actually a fact. Okay? If you're, the fact that you're on this call, the fact that you're listening right here, right now, speaks to the first principle, and that is that there's something underneath the human experience that's giving rise to you being here. We'll call it life, the energy of life, the intelligence of life, the energy of life. Okay? So there's an energy that all of us share in common. You don't have that energy, you don't have the life experience. Okay? So you could say we're plugged into something greater than ourselves that gives rise to the human experience, that makes sure the bars are on, you know, that makes sure that the lights are on, okay, that the screen illuminates itself. So the first principle is the principle of universal mind. Now, universal mind isn't the principle. It's simply a pointer to something, much like a metaphor points to something. So universal mind is pointing to something, and that something is invisible. Okay? But human beings, we have the ability to recognize the invisible. We have the ability to perceive or to acknowledge the fact that, yeah, I'd be hard pressed to say that I'm not plugged into something right now. And I'd be pretty hard pressed to argue that. Now you could argue that the world's really flat, but why bother? Okay. When with this understanding, part of the promise is one's psychological immune system rises, you could say, and with that, a person's quality of life and innate well-being reveals itself, because it's already there. It's already within you. It's already within me. Your innate wellness, your clarity of mind is already within you. And what happens is this understanding of where our experience comes from kind of clears the deck. It's almost like meditation without meditation. The system reboots, and human beings get out from all this extraneous thought that's just covering up their joy, covering up their peace of mind, and burdening them. So the first principle is really the principle of universal mind. It's the energy behind life, underneath the human experience, that with it, there's an intelligence that comes with it. And it's the intelligence that is pumping your heart right now. It's the intelligence that is firing all the neurons in your brain. It's the intelligence of your lungs expanding and being breathed without you doing anything. So we start to respect and recognize that there's an intelligence underneath the system. And with that intelligence, what comes with that in the human experience is something called wisdom. So there's an innate wisdom that we're connected to, that we're part of, and that seems to show itself through universal mind. At least that's how it's looking to me right now. The second principle, and these are not in any particular order, but the second principle is the fact that humans think, that we live in a world of thought, that if some alien showed up on the planet kind of as anthropologists, and they looked and they started doing some research and said, well, what do these humans do? They'd be pretty darn certain, well, oh, these human beings, they wake up in the morning and they start thinking and they start creating shit. That's what we do. We have thoughts and we create with our thoughts. And so there's this universal principle called universal thought. Okay. And it's distinct from our personal thinking. At least I think that's helpful in the beginning. It's not really distinct. It's all one thing, but they're part of the teaching and part of hanging out with people for 2 or 3 days, getting them to drop into this understanding, is that people start to see that it's not thought that gives them problems. It's not universal thought that gives them problems. In fact, universal thought is where their innate wellness comes from. It's all of our personal thinking and our beliefs that gives us all kinds of trouble. Okay? So part of what we do in a 2 or 3 day training is help people see that they've got a lot of thought on the system that they didn't know, and that they've bitten in and bought and bet the farm on those thoughts as if they're true and if they're real. And the more people wake up to that, and the more they maybe even question the fact is, gosh, I'm having a thought that person doesn't like me. And instead of running with that or believing in it or buying in it hook, line, and sinker, I start to loosen up the fact that, oh, that's just thought in the system. I have no idea whether that's true or not. I have no idea whether that's true or not, yet I'm behaving, reacting, and believing it's true. And when I believe, act, and live as if it's true, reacting to that thought, That's what starts to create all my suffering and trouble in the world. I get myself in a world of trouble when I'm unable to distinguish. There's thought coming through the system. I've now added meaning to that thought. I'm believing in that thought. Now it's really personal. So that means it's personal thinking, because now I've put meaning into it. Okay? And now that kind of hangs around as an unquestioned truth. And then I start reacting to it in such a way. And that creates trouble for me. Okay? So that's the second universal principle. The first one was universal mind. The second is universal thought. The fact that all of us, what we share in common is thought. And thought is really the gift human beings have to create. We create via thought. The third, again, in not any particular order, is the fact that human beings come with this capacity of awareness. We have the ability to be aware. We have the ability to be aware that we're alive. We have the ability to be aware that we're breathing. We have the ability to be aware that we're part of a larger system. We have the ability to be aware that we're thinking. We have the ability to be aware that we're experiencing a high mood or a low mood. And then we have the ability to witness that going on. And then we have an ability to be aware of that. So awareness is infinite. There's infinite levels of awareness or consciousness. And in summary, you could say that what we all have in common are these three principles: the gift of life, the gift to create via our thinking, and the gift of awareness called universal consciousness. Okay? So those are the three principles, and they are a psychological and spiritual understanding to the human experience. They come with a logic that explains every possible human experience under the sun, under the moon. Okay? So that's kind of a Reader's Digest version of this clarity, the key to a kick-ass life, is that the first point here is life isn't happening to me. Life is actually happening from me. And it's happening from me via I'm feeling my thinking in the moment. And then the world occurs for me consistent with that. And the world's never happening to me, meaning that my happiness, my joy, my peace of mind, my security can never come from out there. It's impossible to feel security. I can look at my bank account and I can see a bunch of numbers on there, but that's not where my security comes from. It looks like that might have something to do with security, but that's not. That's the flatlander misunderstanding. Now, it just means I have a bunch of thinking about where my security is coming from. But what happens is when we stop looking outside of ourselves to explain my happiness, my security, my well-being, my joy, and I realize that it's already within me. My security is already within me. It's already within you. Anybody on this call, listening to the call, listening to the replay, it's within all of us. Okay? So our security is already within us. Our happiness is already within us. Our well-being is already within us. If it wasn't for our innocent misunderstanding of where our experience is coming from. And see, people innocently look outside of themselves that, oh, well, when this happens, I'll be happy. Or when this happens, I'll be happy. Or when this happens, I'll feel secure and I can retire. Or when this happens and this person does this, then I'll feel secure. and safe. And when this happens, then I'll feel secure. And so the list goes on. You fill in the blanks. I'll feel successful when. Well, that's the outside in orientation. And that's where people look outside of themselves to as a strategy for finding happiness, as a strategy for finding peace of mind, as a strategy for finding security. And what we're learning here is that all of that you're looking for out there is already underneath the hood for all of us, no matter what. Okay. All right. Well, that was a lot. I'll open it up for questions. If anybody has any questions or comments about anything I said, I'll happy to open it up and field any questions if there are questions. Anybody have any questions or comments? No questions? No comments? Did I put everybody to sleep? Yeah, Bo, what's your question? You can just unmute yourself and feel free to ask it live.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Half question, half statement, really, but maybe you could just run with this.
Okay.
I wrote this down earlier today on the heels of a pretty cool idea for a new sales process I just created, but I wrote down, the principles help me to get out of my own way. And it just really kind of hit me how much that has done that for me. But if you want to just elaborate on that, I'd love to hear kind of your take on that stand or that idea.
Well, I guess my question would be, how would you explain that the principles got you out of your own way? So how does that make sense to you? Because it makes sense to me. I mean, I get it. It's kind of what we were talking about earlier, but how does it make sense to you that the principles helped you get out of your own way?
Answering the question with the question, my man. Yes, well, I guess it just feels like the clarity when the person has it. It seems as if when they don't have it, you're shooting yourself in the foot. It just everything seems so obvious, and these things just come to mind, and then they happen, and life just flows, and it's almost like what problems, you
Yeah.
forget about all that stuff, but then there are other times when you're thinking about all these things, and the problems are right there, and it just seems like on some level we're blocking ourselves from everything innocently without even knowing it.
Yeah. Well, I love what you're saying there, Bo. And we chatted just briefly before the call, and I think where it helps is that people have a lot more lightness around taking on new things because they realize where their experience is coming from, and if they don't hit something out of the park, they don't look at the thing as the reason for them being bummed out. They just look at, oh gosh, I'm just having some really discouraging thoughts. I really thought that project or thing had some merit, but people just get off of stuff way quicker because they don't have anything on it. And as people start to live, particularly in the world of business, with less and less stuff on it, like they don't make it mean anything about who they are, they don't make it mean anything about their identity, they just take more risk. They're more innovative, they're more creative, and you could say that they're in the game more, and they're in the game consistently. I think that's what is really helpful in terms of business. So that's what I would say about getting out of your own way. It's getting out of your own way to be in the game, but then it's also being out of the way to stay in the game. And another way to say that is that's what this understanding allows people to do, is just be more resilient, because we don't know if we're going to hit something out of the park or not, but we know we'll be able to get right back in the game regardless.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thank you for your participation. I appreciate it, Bo. Anybody else? Thoughts, comments, questions? I mean, is this interesting to people? I mean, does it make any sense? Is it like, yeah.
I just said the same question you did.
Hi, I'm not sure. Somebody on the iPhone, they raised their hand. Feel free to jump in.
Yeah, this is Avery Wright.
Hi, Avery.
Hey, nice to jump on. And, you know, a lot of what resonated with what you were talking about was this issue with security.
Mm.
In fact, you could probably profile me in all the bullet points you said towards the end of those principles.
Mm-hmm.
How do you start to get out of a situation like that? What steps do you take? Because after a while, you know, you do everything you can to keep going, to move past them, to do more.
Right.
But sometimes it's hard to let go.
Yeah. Great question. And, you know, what's occurring to me in this moment, and I hope it'll be helpful, but it was my own journey to see how I didn't really understand thought too well. Like I didn't understand, like, thought was just transitory, like clouds coming through the system. And yeah, I'd have insecure thoughts coming through the system, and I'd have great ideas coming through the system, and then I'd have disappointing thoughts coming. But it's just, see, I didn't understand the nature of thought. And once I started to wake up to it, and I started to realize, and I started to understand, and I started to see, oh, it's just thought. See, like, if people just realized an insecure thought is no different than your child waking up in the middle of the night being afraid that there's a monster in his room because he saw a shadow. Like, when I started to see the nature of thought, an insecure thought, the worst possible thought that could come through the system, the scariest thought ever, the most, you know, suicidal thought, an insecure, whatever it is, it's like, oh, that's just thought. Like, that's really all that's necessary is to just see, is to understand the nature of thought. And the nature of thought is constant. The nature of thought is transient. So it can't stick around forever. Like, even insecure thoughts, they don't stick around forever. And then the other thing is, like, I don't have to believe that. Like, here's the deal. There's insecure thought, and then there's me believing in that insecure thought. That's a huge difference. Like, everybody has insecure thoughts, but the people who really get in over their heads, myself included, is when I believed my insecure thoughts. Like I had an insecure thought, oh, I don't think people like me too much. Okay. But see, if I believe that thought, I start to not only believe it, I start to act and behave in alignment with that thought. And then what happens is you just end up with a hell of a lot more self-proclaiming prophecies, because that's the nature of the mind. The nature of the mind is kind of like a Google search. It's like whatever thoughts and feelings come up on the system, the world must occur consistent with that and give you that feedback loop. That's how the system works. Once you're on to that, you start getting some distance from your thinking rather than getting dragged under the bus by them. So did that help at all?
Yeah, I think what I struggle with, and I guess you could use financial security, is that I don't have a benchmark in my head of what's going to be that secure figure. And it translates into other areas.
Right.
Because you never know what your baseline is.
What's your first name again?
First name is Avery.
Avery. Okay, got it. Yeah,
just a great friend to Chris Wilson and the rest of the people on here.
Oh, nice. Well, so Avery, you have some thought that comes through the system around finances. Is that right, Avery?
Correct.
So you have some thought that comes through the system, okay? And it doesn't look like the thought is what's causing your insecurity, right? It's looking like something's going on outside in the world, around the world of finances, like that's what's causing your experience, I'm guessing.
Correct. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
Coming from not a lot of financial security,
Mm-hmm.
it's created this need that I don't know what it is that's going to fulfill that security.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. Your security is already within you, and it has nothing to do with finances. I know that may sound really bold and really strange, but I'm also going to suggest innately, you know that you're already okay. You're already secure right now. Even if you had no place to stay, even if you were on the curb, you know, is it true that you're not okay financially right now?
Yeah, I think that's what resonates the most, is being aware of the thoughts that I am.
Yeah. And like your security is independent of anything that happens in the world. Whether your partner leaves you, a girlfriend breaks up with you, somebody posts something really bad about your business online. It's like, see, our security has nothing to do with what's going on out there in the world, period, at all. See, and when we can come home to this single paradigm, we can come home, and that's what I said is clarity comes with when we understand there's only one paradigm. That whatever you're experiencing in the moment, if you're experiencing stress or anxiety around finances, that your stress and anxiety around finances is being self-generated via your thinking in the moment. That's it. That's how the system works. It always works that way, no matter what. Okay? Now, the more and more you wake up to that, the system kind of shows up to start self-correcting matters. Like, you just stop believing you're thinking. And the more you do that, you stop believing it. What happens is your mind slows down and it stops worrying. It gets out from under a bunch of worrisome thoughts, Avery.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
I hear you 110%.
Yeah. So here's the deal. I still get caught up in insecure thoughts. Like I still have, insecure thoughts about finances from time to time. But I'm kind of on to them now. It's like, like if the neighborhood kids were playing doorbell ditch, and I come down and I answer the door and I get all bent out of shape and I'm really mad as hell or whatever, that goddamn kids, after a while, the doorbell keeps ringing. I'm kind of on to it. It's kind of funny, it's like, doorbell ditch, and those kids, well, we actually start waking up to our thinking. It's like, oh, I'm just having an insecure thought is no different than doorbell ditch. It's like, oh, that's just that thought again. And you don't get all worked up about it. And what happens is the more that happens, you have more clarity of mind. And then people just get really creative around finances. They have it's like, just imagine working on a computer that has no room, no more memory, no more room on it or whatever. It's really hard to work on a computer. It's slow as shit. You can't get anything done. But now you take all that, you take all the apps off, you take, you create space on the hard drive, you get extra RAM, you got all that space. Well, guess what? Performance goes through the roof. And so that's what happens for people, Avery, is that with this understanding, you just end up not only with more space on your hard drive and more RAM, but you actually get plugged into something greater than you. And like when I saw that, I go, oh shit. I'm part of a larger system there's actually a kindness in the design. It has my back. Oh shit, when I saw that, I was really embarrassed, but also touched. And I looked at how much of my life I had been overly proud of my self-reliance and doing everything on my own. And when I started to see that, holy shit, I have access to the power of the universe. It's a whole different game, brother.
Well, I really appreciate the insights.
You're
And
very welcome.
if you have any insights to what those access points are to the entire universe, I'd love to take it offline.
Where are you? What part of the country are you in?
I'm actually just out of Portland, Oregon.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'm going to be up in Portland. I'm going to be up at Chris's August 24th and 25th, 2 days. And if there's a way that you could be there, I'd love to spend 2 days working with you and whoever else would want to be there, and going deeper into this and having you see something for yourself. So my job is, I can't make you see anything. All I can do is point you in the direction. And that's what I do. I invite people to spend 2 or 3 days with me. And I just keep pointing them in this direction until the penny fucking drops and they go, oh shit, holy smokes. And then something happens for them. Like right before this call, it's a buddy of mine. It's his birthday today. And I called to wish him a happy birthday. But he just did my last 3-day intensive here down in San Diego. He's all, brother, man, I'm still flying. He's all, man, I'm just, my world is rocked. My life is not the same. And I can't be more touched. Number one, he's a friend of mine. And just to see that he saw something and it's completely changed his life. And I can see the shit he's posting on social media. It's like, he's seen something. So Avery, if you can make it, on those dates, that'd be wonderful. And if not, feel free to reach out with me and we can have a private conversation.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. I'll be in town. I'll be in touch.
Cool. All right. Thank you. We had another, Hannah, did you have a question? Yeah.
My question is, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you.
No, you're very
welcome. I'm big on understanding that not always the first thought we can control, but maybe the second we can. Mm. How do you evaluate to know that something is not a insecure thought or that it is an insecure thought?
Oh boy, that's great.
I could say, let's just say like Avery, because we're just talking about him with like finance. So if he has a thought that says, I'm not financially stable right now, how does he evaluate that? Or how do we all evaluate? Because there are times where you need to be concerned and there's times when you shouldn't be. Like, how do you evaluate your thoughts? And
this is a great question. So when a person is concerned, does that help?
No. Maybe. Who knows?
I've had a lot of concerns and a lot of worry, and it didn't help at all. It made things worse. Okay. So here's the answer, or here's what I'm saying is that part of this understanding and this teaching is understanding that what comes with the territory of being a human being is that we come out of the box with a GPS system that lets us know exactly the type of thinking that's taken us in the right direction or not. Okay. Now, here's how that system works is every thought we have comes with a feeling. Every thought, they come simultaneous. Okay. So here's a really good qualifier, is my thought true? Is it kind? And is it necessary? And if any one of those is a no, okay, then I'm moving in the wrong direction, and I don't want to give that thought any more attention. I don't want to water it at all, even if it looks like it's a valid concern at all.
I guess is my question, that if somebody's in the mindset that, like, let's take something pretty arbitrary, like, do I see the same color as you do? So, like, let's say if I look at something and I think it's blue and you say it's not, and I'm like, well, is my thought true? Yes. I guess kind and necessary don't really apply, but I guess because sometimes in mindsets.
Well, yeah, I mean, here's the deal, is that one of the things through this deepening and understanding, we realize that we're all living in a separate reality.
Yes.
And as soon as we realize that, what comes with the territory is kindness and compassion and a desire to understand. How can that not be blue? Tell me, I want to understand how is that not blue for you? Okay.
And maybe tell me how that is blue for you.
Yeah, or how, whatever it is, but there's a dialogue now, not an adversarial argument or whatever it is. All right. So what's really beautiful about this is, remember, we said there's mind, consciousness, and thought are these underlying principles. And from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, Hannah, you're living in a world of thought. Okay. Now, are you having the same thoughts as Jay or Chris or Bo or Avery? No.
No.
Okay. So if you guys are having different thinking going on, do you think it might be true that you're having a different experience, or the world is occurring for you uniquely?
Completely.
Yeah. Now that in itself is life-changing in the area of relationships. Okay? It's transformational. Okay? Because we start to realize, going, oh, Hannah's having her experience. Let's just say she's mad. Okay? She's mad that I don't say blue, or whatever it is. Now, you'll start to go, oh, she's just got some thinking going through the system. I don't need to even know what it was, but she's just got frustrated thinking going on right now because she's mad. But because I understand how the system works, I don't take it personal. Like she's not mad at me. She's not mad at, it's like, oh, she's just got some thinking going through the system called frustrated. I don't understand why people don't see colors the way I see them. Again, we're just talking arbitrary, but you start to loosen up with it, going, well, that's just really interesting, and then it even blows your mind. How can Greg see magenta when it clearly looks blue? And what happens is, now we get out of right, wrong.
Yeah.
We get out of right, wrong. We get out of this adversarial thing. So the deeper people start to understand the nature of thought, what comes with the territory is we start to understand not only how our experience is occurring for us moment by moment, but we realize everybody else is having their experience, given we're all living in a separate reality. This is really helpful, particularly if you're a parent, if you manage people, whatever it is. It's really, really valuable, because here's all that's happening. People are feeling their thinking in the moment. Kids are feeling their thinking in the moment. Employees are feeling their thinking in the moment. Moms are feeling their thinking in the moment. Dads are feeling their thinking in the moment. We're all feeling our thinking in the moment. That's why we're having these feelings. That's why we're having our unique experiences moment to moment. Now, the more we understand that, then we stop blaming or making excuses for, well, my mom's the reason for why I'm having this experience, or Bob's not seeing blue. That's why I'm really frustrated because I can't get. No, it has nothing to do with Bob. I'm generating my own frustration around this in the moment. It's all on me. So this is really powerful because people start shifting from living life as a victim to completely taking 100% ownership for their moment-to-moment experience, given living in their thinking. All right?
And just a really quick follow-up.
Okay. Did that make sense? Did that make sense?
Oh, completely.
Okay,
And that's the way I think I live life, and the way that I see the world.
Okay.
So I guess the next question is, can you help people with that next, like, what is the next step after that realization?
Well, who would I be helping? Yes, I can help you.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, where are you? Where do you live?
I live in Portland, Oregon.
Okay, great. Well, if you can earmark the dates, the 24th and 25th of August, I'd love you to come and be with me, and stay in this conversation. So the only way not to understand this is to get out of the conversation. So this is the beginning of the conversation. And so
I like it. Thank you.
we just want to continue that conversation, continue it. I often talk about back, 20, 25 years ago, long time ago, maybe even longer than that when I was a kid, they had these posters. And these posters had a bunch of dots on them, these like art posters. And you're supposed to look at them, and if you looked at them long enough, you'd see something. You'd see a dolphin or a wave. Yeah, one of those. So that's what these 2 or 3 days is I just put up, I hold these principles up like those dot posters until you see something. You go, oh shit, now I see it. Okay, so that's it. Everybody has the ability to see it. Some people see it really quickly. Some people it takes a couple of years. Some people it takes 2 hours. I don't have any control over that. I just invite people and we stay in the conversation, and then they see what they see. And it's really powerful for people, Hannah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. High five.
You're very welcome. All right. Well, we're just a little bit past the top of the hour. I want to thank all of you for being on the call. Thank you, Chris and Bo, for making this happen. And if you haven't got the hint by now, I'm going to be up in Oregon, August 24th and 25th. I'm going to be spending 2 days with a small group of people, hopefully some people here on the call. And if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me, Chris or Bo, or whoever invited you here, and we can get you the particulars. It's basically it's $397. It's 2 days from 9 to 5, spending those 2 days doing a deep dive into this understanding. And if you're interested, I'd be honored to work with you. And that's about it. And if you can't make that one, I'm doing a 3-day here in San Diego, September 14th through the 16th. So if that makes sense for people, you can do that as well. Let's see here. All right. Well, with that being said, if you do want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me via my website, www.gregclowminzer.com, or my phone number is 760-580-7230. That's actually my cell. Feel free to reach out to me and we can have a chat, answer any questions that you might have. All right. Ciao, guys.